are in movie mode. Thank you so much for joining us for the second time this week to talk about this little comic book film. I'm Ryan Snelling. Austin Burke, how are you today, sir?
I'm wonderful. I went 3 days this week without internet, so that was painful. Relying on phone signal to provide internet to your computer and the rest of your house is rough, but I learned a lot. I actually saw the colors of the flowers outside of my house and noticed some things I've never noticed before because I didn't have Wi-Fi, Ryan, so it was a great experience.
That was the question I didn't ask you off air. Did a little part of you enjoy it? I know it's stressful because your job, it depends on having an internet connection, but what you missed were negative YouTube comments.
Oh, yeah.
You missed the stress of you wondering if certain videos got to certain views and made certain amount of money. You missed some people getting mad at things on the internet. I mean, you got to enjoy your child, I'm assuming. You got to touch grass, like you said. So, I don't know. Was it all bad?
I guess it wasn't all bad. I was disappointed the whole time because, you know, what I do, what you do, really relies on that. And so it set me back on my videos a little bit. But at the same time, I technically did spend more time with my family and didn't worry about the other stuff as much. So I tried to stay positive through it all. But it being Deadpool week, I think that added to the stress a little bit.
Well, just be grateful that it didn't happen this weekend. Now that, you know, we got Comic-Con still going out. You're going to make more videos, I'm assuming. So maybe it happened right at the proper moment between our first Deadpool podcast and our second Deadpool podcast. Yeah.
It didn't set us back. It didn't set us back on this, though, because we planned on recording this when it came back on anyway. So I'm happy it did not impact movie mode, which was great.
That's right. It's kind of poetic that it happened at the time that it did. And, you know, it's easy for me to say that because it doesn't affect me at all, the way that it happened. So, for sure. Guys, this podcast is all spoilers all the time. We're just going to talk about this entire movie, the experience around this movie. We'll touch on maybe the Comic-Con panel, a lot of the press stuff that's been going on, outlets leaking, spoilers online. Everything is a go here. So, if you haven't seen the movie, get out now because this is all we're going to do for our remaining time together, however long it takes to do what we're doing. And we might as well just open it up. We are speaking about this movie for the first time, having both seen it. My last conversation with Austin was on air with you guys, so we have not talked about this movie, except, again, spoilers are a go. I texted you that I knew that Channing Tatum would be in the movie. So we'll start there, and then it's a weird place to start, but that's where we were. Yeah. I knew that Channing Tatum was going to be in the movie because somebody tweeted that comic book movies now reference things that don't even exist, and they made it a point to talk about Nick Cage being in The Flash, how that doesn't make sense to 90% of the population, but maybe a select few will pick up on that reference. And I just knew that person was talking about Channing Tatum being in this movie. And so, yeah, I'm trying to think back to the things that we talked about. I asked you questions, tried to gain some insight. Have you thought back to that podcast? Like, what was the one thing that you wish you could have told me when we were speaking about that?
Well, the whole time we were talking, I think your mind, and granted, it's the exact same place my mind was before the movie started, was so focused on the actual X-Men part of it all and not the other side of the Fox stuff. And so I was wanting to, with every fiber of my being, just be like, Ryan, it's not... It's everybody. It's the bad movies as well. You know, we're kind of referencing everything, and so that's kind of what I was trying my best to hold back the whole time. Because I think you even said Wesley Snipes while we were talking.
I did.
And when you said that, I go, how am I going to answer this question? And even when you texted me about Channing Tatum, I'm like, how do I answer this, or how do I respond, trying to throw him off? Even though at this point you were pretty well aware of what you were in for. But you hit the nail on the head multiple times while you were talking. So I was pretty impressed with how close you got.
The Wesley Snipes being in this movie, the Jennifer Garner being in this movie, those are the things that I categorically just like put away as like the internet getting carried away with itself. So like when those rumors came up on Twitter within the last year or two, I mean, those are the things I just think, why would they do that? And I never, which I'm grateful for, because that means I just wasn't looking for it. And it still totally shocked me and surprised me. So I don't have a problem with being wrong in those instances, because, I mean, how fun is that?
Yeah.
That's hilarious to me that I'm wrong about that kind of stuff. But I'm just like, why would they do that? Why would they bring in Blade? How would they do that? Like, yeah, maybe the camera will just cut to him and he'll make a joke, like in the way that Chris Evans had that little moment in Fall Guy, or Free Guy, excuse me. Or he's like, what the shit? Making the captain. Like, yeah, okay. But also, like, that's not even, like, internet rumor worthy. Like, who cares if it cuts to Wesley Snipes, like, watching the movie or something like that. But I just never would have guessed that that's what we were going to do. So I think in general terms, I went into this movie thinking that not only is this going to be Deadpool's entry into the MCU and he can take full advantage of it, but it would also be Wolverine's. And this is what I've been thinking about today. It's not really like a welcome home party for Wolverine in the MCU. We go to settings in the MCU, the TVA and the Void, but you were accurate in saying, like, this is more about the Fox X-Men, or the Fox universe rather, not just X-Men. And we really don't do anything with the fact that Hugh Jackman is in the MCU at this point, because we just put him with Deadpool, which we've already seen that happen. Granted, it was, 16 years ago, 15 years ago or whatever. So it's just kind of interesting that that's the case. And yeah, it's like barely an MCU movie almost.
Yeah, they hit on it, or they hit on the MCU a couple of times here and there. Obviously, the conversation with Jon Favreau at the beginning, which is funny because Jon Favreau is in both Fox and the Marvel universes as different characters. So I liked that conversation. And when that happened, I'm like, oh man, we're full on welcome to the MCU Deadpool, which means welcome to the MCU Wolverine. Other than that brief moment where Wolverine is fighting Hulk, which is awesome, by the way. I would love to see something there down the line. That's about it. The rest is Fox. The rest is these Fox characters being stuck out of time, all coming together, and just the location in the Void being the home for all of these cameos to happen. But they're not just, they're cameos, right? But these guys are integral characters in this movie. I mean, the little team that they create throughout the second act of the film, they're on screen for 25 minutes. Channing Tatum is probably on screen for at least 20 minutes with his terrible accent. So that was just a nice treat for fans, or even not fans, because I don't like the Elektra movie. I think it's terrible. But I like her as Elektra, especially in that Daredevil movie, and it's just nice to see her back in that, and they hit on all the little issues that people have with those movies in that universe, and I thought they treated all those characters the way they should have, which was elevate them, make them feel like their time on screen is earned, but also give us those moments that we were looking for.
I've read a lot of reactions, very positive, very negative.
Oh, yeah.
I've listened to a podcast that was very positive and also very cynical about what type of movie this is. And I actually understand all sides to this.
Sure.
I really do. But I think the people that are cynical about it, I don't think they are acknowledging enough that this does feel like a natural Deadpool sequel on its own. Like, if the MCU wasn't involved, if the Fox acquisition never happened, I think Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman could have come up with Deadpool 3 and had it be a road trip movie without the TVA. Like, just a lot of what they did, it still, I think, could have been Deadpool 3 under Fox.
Yes.
I really think that. And I think Ryan Reynolds probably could have gotten away with bringing in Elektra still, or bringing in Channing Tatum. Like, again, it just isn't as obvious as a MCU movie as I thought it would be going in. I mean, I thought there would be more conversation. Yeah, there were jokes about keeping Hugh Jackman in here until he's like 90 years old, but I thought we were going to confront the mutant saga more so. Yeah. Based on how Kevin Feige was talking going in, and it's just really not that. It's a Deadpool 3. Mm-hmm. It really, really is. And I'm glad I kind of put those expectations aside. And I'm really not thinking about recasting Wolverine anymore because they left it so open-ended. It's just like, yeah, I don't think we're doing this yet. I don't think we're supposed to have this. We can have the conversation, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Well, you mentioned it on the last podcast. They were wanting this to feel very self-contained. And it's amazing how many characters and cameos and Easter eggs there are in this movie, yet the film feels like it's a self-contained picture that maybe sets the stage for the future, but doesn't rub it in our faces like, oh, here's where we're going next, right? It is just that. It's a road trip between these two characters that we've always wanted to see on screen. But at the same time, it's delivering on almost the same types of jokes and ideas and thoughts and themes that we got in the first two Deadpool movies, and it's a natural continuation because what Deadpool's fighting for in this movie, he's fighting for his family that he fought to get back using Cable's machine, and it's so weird to me that the plot point of Cable's time machine, which is also a universe jump machine apparently, it's so crazy that just worked out. I mean, it worked out. It sent Deadpool to those places in the first place to change the past, and thus the TVA was after him. And I'm like, I know they didn't plan that because they weren't together, but it's just crazy how they were able to just seamlessly blend that. And so I'm really impressed with that, and I think that's the right call, that's the right move, and it's just a natural progression for his character. And then what they do with Wolverine, it feels kind of natural as well.
And honestly, the few aspects to the MCU that are included, I think kind of ruin it a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think I expected more on the nose, like Fox is going bankrupt kind of talk, and Disney's coming in, and Kevin Feige has decided that you can come, but Vanessa's not coming, Vanisher's not coming. Like, I thought it was going to be more like that. And it was going to be Deadpool sitting across from an executive being like, can I bring Hugh Jackman? Well, Hugh Jackman died in Logan. No, I can bring him back. And then, that's the kind of stuff I thought we were going to get that we didn't. So the fact that it was kind of like the TVA, and the TVA is what took away the fourth wall breaking. Like, we've got to make it about the TVA. But it's like, no, you could have just been said, Kevin Feige's going to prune the Fox X-Men, but he wants a couple of you guys for a couple more movies or whatever, and been a little bit more on the nose. And I actually think that would have worked more, to be honest, because I think the story, and I think most people agree with this, is the most flimsy part of this. I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
Like, I think the more obvious we made it, I think it would have worked better instead of trying to make it an MCU movie.
Yeah, I never found the story to be confusing. I never found the story to be too much. I guess it was a lot. But what the big problem with this story is the fact that it was trying to juggle all of these elements, yet deliver on the things that we know and love about Deadpool from the past. And they do that successfully, in my opinion. And you also have these villains that you give goals for and a motivation for at the beginning. And I actually think they handled Cassandra Nova well. I found Matthew, his character, to be a little over the top at times. But by the time we get to the third act, I didn't really care about the villain thing. I didn't care about the machine that they never explained. I didn't care about the warping of the timelines, all that stuff. I'm just kind of like, I'm here for Hugh and Ryan on screen together, and they kept delivering that in spades. Like the third act, we spend almost the entire time with them as they're going on this journey that I don't care as much about. But the moments that we get with them, man, bringing the comic books to life, I mean, time and time again throughout that final 25 minutes, and then a genuine emotional touch at the end when they're holding hands and frying. And I know I'm skipping forward here, but those are the things that elevated this otherwise kind of sloppy story, because it is kind of a sloppy story. But the focus on these two characters, them being the focal point from start to finish, and never spending too much time elsewhere. I mean, we have to get that right. We have to grow this villain a little bit. We have to grow all these Deadpools just a little bit. But they're always on screen together, I would say 85% of the time in this movie. And that is what I think all comic book fans wanted. That's what they get. And so in that way, I believe they deliver exactly what they need to.
Yeah, that's just one reason why I don't have any cynicism towards it. It's because, I mean, the title of the movie is Deadpool and Wolverine. And I just feel like it, not in my wildest dreams. Yeah, we probably predicted and anticipated that they would do a lot of what they did, but the fact that it could happen like this, it's just exactly the kind of exercise we should have been doing in the multiverse.
Yeah. And
again, bringing the Fox characters back that we may or may not love or have even seen on screen at all. Channing Tatum's Gambit. But but at the same time, it's like that's exactly what these kinds of movies should be all about, or going to the movies should be all about. So the cynicism, I think, too, comes from this place where it's just like, what is this kind of stuff for?
Yeah.
So maybe because it's for me, I don't subscribe to that as much. Because, I mean, so many jokes go over people's heads. But even then, it's like, I feel like you could say that from any of the Deadpool movies.
Yeah.
When Deadpool calls Cable Thanos, it's like, does everybody even know Josh Brolin's name, let alone that they play Thanos? Like, yeah, maybe they saw it on a TikTok eventually, but it's like that kind of stuff was always peppered in. I was thinking about this too. I was like, I could have seen a version of Deadpool 3 under Fox where they still had like Jon Favreau playing this like weird guy in a chair. And they might not have literally been able to say that it was Happy Hogan, but I feel like Ryan Reynolds stumbling upon Jon Favreau in Deadpool 3 could have happened whether it was an MCU movie or not. Like, I just think that that's something that they would have done.
Yeah.
So, you also managed my expectations really well too, because you're just like, think of it like it's a comedy. Think of it like it's just the next Deadpool movie, and you're gonna be fine. So the people that are trying to, all of this reasoning that we're applying to this movie, it's almost like it's just because it starts with Marvel Studios logo.
Yes. That's
but it's fair. I understand that it's fair because coincidentally, and this is something I want to talk to you about, because I was trying to talk about No Way Home. I think it fits more with, I think comparing this to Multiverse of Madness is more suiting,
I
though.
I am with you 100%.
And that's what I want to dissect more, because that's not a movie I think is successful. I do not like that movie, and I wanted to talk about why I do and don't like either of these two movies. But I'm glad you agree. Were you going to say that on the pod on Monday?
I thought about it, but I didn't want to. There were certain things that I tiptoed around that maybe I didn't need to tiptoe around too much, but that was definitely more my thoughts walking out of this was, this is what Multiverse of Madness tried to do and failed at doing. Now, I kind of like Multiverse of Madness. I like the Sam Raimi elements. I like the horror elements. I like what they do with Wanda at the end and those fights that we get at the end. But the weakest part is that just offshoot sequence where they try to shoehorn in all these characters. First of all, it looks terrible, and it's like, did Sam Raimi really direct this part, or did he just direct the rest of the movie? But second of all, it's such a failure of an attempt to do that and have these big, crazy fan freak-out moments when Deadpool 3 does it so seamlessly. That's when I look back at Multiverse of Madness, I'm like, that's what you should have done. You should have made it an integral part of the movie and not made it feel like you're shoehorning things in there, because that's what I see. I see a lot of these complaints on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh man, it's just a lot of fan service, a lot of nostalgia. You're tapping into that, and a lot of these Easter eggs and cameos. You don't just like the movie for the cameos, do you, Austin?" And the whole time I'm thinking, fan service isn't a bad thing if it's handled well. I've seen numerous beautiful, beautiful attempts at fan service that work extremely well, enhance the final product, and thus you're talking about it, and it remains in the cultural zeitgeist for a reason. And then I've seen botched attempts at fan service. And it seems like ever since we got Avengers Endgame, not just Marvel, right? Disney tried to do it with Rise of Skywalker. They tried to throw in so much fan service in that movie, and to the point to where it's just like, are you doing this for the sake of doing it, or do you actually care about why you're doing it? And we've seen Marvel try to replicate that success after Endgame. No Way Home did it right. Something like Multiverse of Madness did it wrong. And I'll even throw in the Marvels, the post-credit scene with Beast. Maybe they have a plan for that, but I'm just like, the movie's so underwhelming, and then you throw that in just to make us freak out. Okay, it felt so out of place in that movie, by the way. But this is a great example of tapping into what makes these characters great, but also what the fans have been caring about and cared so much for. They were so passionate for that Fox universe. And so to do what they do for that universe to keep it alive in this way, and then even during the credits, I mean, you obviously stayed during the credits, that little montage, that's beautiful, man. I got chills because I'm like, this could really be it. Like, in totality, that universe is done. The last time we're seeing a lot of those characters on screen, this could be it. Now, they're going to weave that in seamlessly, I'm sure, but it just felt like a nice send-off for the 20th century series of movies we got in the early 2000s, and that was beautiful.
Yeah. I agree that as an audience, we felt how... I just feel like having all of these characters, Gambit, Elektra, Blade, it seemed like they were all on stage together. It seemed like they filmed all of their scenes together.
Yes.
It wasn't pieced together like Multiverse of Madness. So the audience felt that. But at the same time, I think Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, with a title like that, especially so early in the multiverse saga, it was an empty promise.
I'm with you.
We saw characters that we knew that they do nothing with. Maybe we got even more confused because it's like, wait, you're using Charles Xavier? You're using John Krasinski? Like, how does this make sense? You have a pre-existing Charles Xavier, but you have a brand new Reed Richards, even though there's two other Reed Richards. Like, it was just like more confusing. It's fun. Like, I'm not trying to act like it didn't shock me to see John Krasinski, but after we've had time to evaluate this kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, if we were going to do a multiverse exercise, it should be like No Way Home, and it should be like this, where we acknowledge everything that we've done in superhero movies and superhero fandom up until this point. So Krasinski's was a version of that. I'm not trying to sound like it. I'm contradicting here, but when you put everything else together and wrap it up, but also it's just like, I honestly just thought Doctor Strange was more boring, to be honest.
Fair.
Like the opening sequence with Deadpool killing the TVA with adamantium bones. I mean, that rips.
Yeah, it does.
My eyes were watering, and which is absurd because Bye 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 is playing. Oh yeah. But the fact that I was just like so happy to be back in a Deadpool movie, it's just like, yeah, this just gave us more than that Doctor Strange movie, and yeah, it was an empty promise and not a true exercise, I think. There is a rabbit hole, a type of conversation that I'd want to have if I was feeling more cynical about it today, but it's like, part of me wonders, what if the TVA was just introduced in this movie and we didn't have to do anything that we've done in the last 4 years? What if Kevin Feige was like, look, we're at a stopping point. We're done with Endgame. We can get these Spider-Man movies out of the way. But now that I have the mutants and Fantastic Four, what if we just halted everything that we have in production and went a completely different direction? And they were able to come up with this quicker. And so that's a little disappointing. And that's the kind of stuff that we can't take back. And that conversation is honestly useless. But I couldn't help but go there a little bit because Yeah. I honestly, I think that's what hurts this movie the most, and the reason why people are cynical is that they can subscribe or prescribe things that didn't work in previous movies and say, well, Deadpool and Wolverine is doing more of the same, so why are you guys that excited about it?
Well, that's the thing, right? These ideas, just because ideas haven't worked in the past doesn't mean that you can't course correct. And I feel like Deadpool and Wolverine is a nice course correction for a lot of ideas that we've seen fail over the last 5 years, right? The multiverse in general hasn't been extremely successful. I think the Loki show is really good, but at the same time, you're spawning that off into so many different directions within all the movies and all the things. Guardians 3 worked so well for me because it felt completely separated from all of that stuff. And so my fear going into Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm like, they're leaning into all that stuff. Are they going to course correct, or is it just going to be another failed attempt? And so I understand why a lot of people are struggling with the fact that this at least attempts to course correct. Maybe it doesn't for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people that hate it, but it attempts to course correct, and it has a lot more fun while doing it. And that's one of the beautiful things, right? I thought so many people would be pissed off by the opening of this film because he takes Logan's corpse and he's playing around and slinging the bones and using the claws, and I'm like, oh, that's going to make people mad. And
I thought that too. But it's also like so smart to do that though, because that's where you have to know you've got to have a sense of humor to do this. It's like you have to acknowledge it in that way, because first of all, we get into the fact that like that was an anchor being, and I mean it sets up the entire point of the movie, but it's like it's also just a lesson of like we're here to have a sense of humor about this, and again, that's another reason why this movie is successful, is because if you are going to have such a meta character and you want to address the fans in as direct a way as possible, you do what you've been doing, a multiversal movie, while making fun of it. And it's like, there's just, you can't, that's the kind of stuff that no other studio can do. Yeah. Like, no other studio can operate that way. And I think that's why people are so weird about this kind of thing, is like there's no precedent for it. Like, how is there any other opportunity where a few actors can comment on their careers in the way that these two gentlemen can? Where can a movie studio head and Kevin Feige, what other movie can name them by name in their own movie? It's like, this is what we're here to do. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no.
You know what? You were talking about the opening and how it would piss people off.
No, but you're absolutely right? And if we weren't doing a multiverse story, we wouldn't have gotten this movie. I mean, that's just the bottom line, right? Because the Logan, and we know this now, in Deadpool's universe, that was the Logan in Deadpool's universe, is dead. He's dead. And so, other than defiling the grave and actually pulling out Logan and reviving him, which is, I think, what would have had to have happened if it wasn't a multiverse story, that's the only way to go about it, is a multiverse story. And so, I get people's criticisms. I really do. And I feel that and share that to a degree, but at the same time, it had to be multiverse because you had to get Logan from another multiverse if you didn't want to spit all over what we got from Logan. And so the culmination of those things makes this movie and allows us in 2024, okay, flashback 12 years, flashback, go further than that, go to 2010. Would you ever have imagined that not only we would have a Deadpool movie, but we would have a Deadpool and Wolverine movie with that Hugh Jackman version of Wolverine in all of its comic book glory? And he's not wearing black spandex, he's wearing the yellow suit. That never occurred to me, okay?
Right.
The fact that we're getting that kind of spawning from the multiverse, it was almost essential to us as fans to feel this type of satisfaction. And for Marvel to rake in all the money, because they made $40 million on Thursday, which is insane. Yeah. But that tells you this is how long fans have been waiting for this. And the multiverse being essential for that type of thing, I'm okay with that. But now we've set the stage for okay, we can move forward and maybe implement the multiverse a little bit less, and maybe kind of focus on the X-Men. And I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what way they're going to spin it. We know Deadpool's going to be a part of it. And hopefully Jackman will be that, like we said in the podcast before, Feige's got him in his back pocket. Maybe we can utilize that for the future. And so I'm excited because of that, because maybe this now means less multiverse nonsense, and we can full-on focus on the X-Men and the mutants.
And I think people forget, too, that we were in a place where, honestly, we can get lost in a lot of the concepts, the TVA, string theory, time travel, and there's all these things that, fans can find themselves in a place where it's like, well, I don't know if all of this makes sense. But we were also saying that when we saw the Fox Fantastic Four movies, the Fox X-Men movies, because we're watching those, and even the Fox X-Men that were concurrent to the MCU, it's like, it doesn't make sense that these franchises aren't acknowledging each other. Mm-hmm. Like, why did we see so many X-Men movies? You know those old clips you see on Twitter where, like, there's that deleted scene in Tim Story's Fantastic Four where Reed morphs his face to look like Hugh Jackman?
Yes, I remember that.
So it's like, that was a deleted scene. And then there's, like, a funny blooper from X-Men 1 where a guy in a Spider-Man costume ran out in the Statue of Liberty fight, and it's just like a prank on the cat. But it's like, that's a joke because that used to be a world where none of this could happen. But it, like, didn't make sense. The fact that rights were tied up in multiple studios, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, why can't these characters... And now we're just in a place where we can do all this, and people are finding a way to complain. It's like, no. Like it'll get to a point, if we don't do things like this, these types of exercises, we're just going to be in these, like, locked-in universes where it's like, these almost aren't comic book movies either. Because when you zoom out... and you're, like, thinking, what's this quixotic ideal of what a comic book movie universe could be? Well, you actually, bring Iron Man together with the Hulk, and then you have this fight with Thor in this movie, and it's just like, I just think sometimes we forget that what Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios has done is probably the most quixotic way of transcribing superheroes to the movie screen. That doesn't mean everything that happens is perfect, but when we have the opportunity that we have with No Way Home and this, Doctor Strange Multiverse of the Madness less successfully, like, this is kind of what we should be doing. Like, we grew into this. And so that's why I'm just not as cynical about this project. And as long as we're being objective and we can still point out, like, this story point doesn't work, this and that, we're all good. We're not shills, but this is just exactly what we asked for. And I understand it's more for us because, I mean, I remember when the Electro movie came out. I remember watching Blade Trinity on DVD with Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds, and I had the context of the behind-the-scenes stories where they didn't get along, and it's like, yes, it is for me, and not everybody's going to get that. When I take my mom and sister to see this movie, they're not going to get any of it.
No. No.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. Then the conversation, you and I, if they didn't have those jokes and didn't have those references and things, we'd always be, like, wanting more out of our movies the way that we did in the early 2000s. Like, it doesn't make sense to not do this thing. And so I just feel like that's the most objective way to look at it. I mean, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but that's just kind of what informs my take on all this.
No, you're absolutely right. It felt like a natural progression from the get-go. It's something that fans were asking for throughout the early 2000s. Like, why aren't these movies connecting? Why are we not acknowledging each other? Well, this is a comic book movie. This doesn't feel like a comic book. It's also separate, and these characters are this and that. And yeah, there are going to be jokes that when my wife watches this movie, she is not going to even remotely understand. She will probably look at me and say, why is Channing Tatum in this? And who is that?
Exactly.
Who is this character that he's playing? And then I'll have to explain, you remember Gambit from X-Men Origins Wolverine? And I'll have to go into grave detail about that one gag, that ongoing gag in this movie, and there will be numerous examples of that. And so that's something that, people are going to struggle with if they're not ready for that, or they just don't have the knowledge necessary. And I get it, man. I really do. Not being in on a joke is sometimes like the worst thing ever. I go back and I watch old Fresh Prince episodes, and he's constantly making pop culture references. Okay? I love the show. One of my favorites of all time. I will laugh at half the jokes, and the other half, I'm like, who is that? Who's he talking about? It was funny in the 90s, but I don't know who that is, who he's referencing. And so not being in on a joke stinks. But this is a movie for the fans. 1,000%. Wouldn't you have loved to have been in Hall H when they showed this movie with that packed audience and those three in attendance? I'm also curious.
Yeah.
Do you think that Snipes and all them were like in the back watching and listening, or were they just there? I doubt they watched the movie with them, because I want to know the joy that I get thinking about Wesley Snipes, how he was feeling walking out on that stage, to the fans flipping out. And we'll talk about the context of this video here in a bit and why they tweeted it out and the fact that I hate it. But I love thinking about Wesley Snipes, what he's thinking, whether or not he actually made up with Ryan Reynolds, but Reynolds giving him the chance to be in this movie and for them to share that hug on stage, man. Like, that brings me joy. And so it's not just the movie itself. It's what this movie is doing for those actors and those characters, giving them a chance to play these characters one more time, and just like young Laura, young X-23, giving her a chance to share the stage with Hugh Jackman again. Like, this movie just did so much across the board, and it makes me so happy to think about.
What was your initial question? I mean, I echo everything you just said.
Yeah.
But how would I have felt if I saw the movie in Hall H?
Well, like that and the Wesley Snipes thing. Do you think? What do you think was going through his head when he was hugging Ryan Reynolds? That's what I want to know.
I think that one thing I forget is that Wesley Snipes, a lot of these guys that played these iconic characters, they go to Comic-Cons and across the country. And I'm sure Wesley Snipes has known since he's played this character that people love him for it, and there's a hunger to see him again. And, there are people online that probably still want Wesley Snipes to just pick up. I mean, I think even somebody during the press junket asked if Wesley Snipes was going to come in and do Blade, and then Kevin Feige was like, well, we announced Mahershala 5 years ago, so we can't walk that back. Like, I can't remember who it was that did that. I think it was maybe the lady at Fandango or Rotten Tomatoes. But anyway, but I think that all of those actors watched that movie and just probably felt affirmation, things that they've been told and felt over the years, over and over again, repeatedly. I think the other thing, too, that I probably take for granted is that there's probably a young kid, like an 8 or a 10-year-old, who just fell in love with X-Men 97, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe X-Men 97 is their entryway into all of these superhero animated series that we loved growing up. But also, so maybe Channing Tatum's Gambit was an absolute thrill in a completely different context.
Yeah.
It's
like that.
So, I mean, the way that, it's kind of funny now, but the way that we were excited to see Taylor Kitsch in X-Men Origins, and we thought that was going to be a glorious thing. It's like, maybe this is a more successful version of that. And it's like, you can feel it's a one and done thing, but somebody got to see Gambit in a movie this weekend, you know? Yeah. We got to see Gambit for a second time, and it's still kind of a joke, but to somebody else it's not. And that was going to be their first iteration of Gambit, and then they're going to have fun seeing X-Men Origins. And it's just like, I just think it's so easy when we comment on this kind of stuff that it's so easy to be cynical about it. But it's like, again, all of these conversations we've had since we started Movie Mode on how these franchises should or should not operate with its fandom. It's like, I just don't know how confusing is it to a studio who's trying to do things for its fandom, and it's just like there's people being cynical about it. I think it makes sense that the people that aren't like as passionate about these kind of movies, I understand why they just think this is another Marvel movie.
For sure.
Like, I 100% get that. Because those people always exist. Ever since the MCU was created, there are people that are not into men in tights running around and fighting CGI monsters. I get it. That sentiment is fine, and I'm there for it. But anyway, we've kind of gone in circles around this point. But I think the one thing I will say is that, going back to that Hall H presentation, I got choked up watching Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. Hugh Jackman in that moment felt like he was about to cry as well. Oh, yeah. But hearing Kevin Feige talk about how that was his favorite movie-going experience in a while, like all that kind of stuff, it's just that's the kind of stuff where I'm just like, why can't we just have fun with this? Like, why do we? It's so special. It's such a special thing. So the only thing, as a fan, that I wish that the movie did more, one, I'm being a little bit more selfish with this. I was expecting them to acknowledge Fox's continuity issues. And I don't mean like make a joke about it, but I wish we actually would have gotten in there and taken a look at every Fox X-Men movie and said that certain ones were a part of different universes. Because that could have solved a lot of problems. This is the universe where Charles got shot in Cuba and went paralyzed. This is the one where he didn't, and he picked up Jean Grey and he could walk. Like, I think we could have done a little bit of that because it would have been important to informing which Wolverines were which. And a legitimate criticism of the movie, like the one time where I felt like, is it really a multiverse movie if you aren't showing us Logan's backstory here? That might be the weirdest thing about this movie, is that we just don't see what happened to this Wolverine.
Sure.
It's just mentioned. And that's where I feel like, for the most part, we're lucky that we don't have to think like that anymore under these circumstances, the possibilities of the multiverse. But it's just so weird that it had a small instance of that in this movie.
Yeah, I echo that to a degree. I definitely thought this would, just in general, I thought there would be more X-Men characters. I mean, obviously we have X-23, and we heavily acknowledge Logan and its existence, but we never get anyone else. Right, we get some of the villains, some of the ragtag, like Azazel and Juggernaut and that, but that's it. I thought we would see one of the Charles Xaviers. I thought we would see one of the Magnetos, any of them, and we never really hit on the X-Men. Now, that was definitely by choice. They're clearly doing that on purpose because they're wanting their focus to be in other places, but a lot of fans are kind of expecting that, and so I'm interested to see and parse through how their expectations were and were not met with that. And if the surprises were able to overcome what they didn't end up getting. And I'm with you. I didn't really think about that in a way, acknowledging like the way that the timeline's just a disaster. But at the same time, we can kind of in our brain say, okay, well, I guess it was just multiple timelines now. Like, I can look at the old Fox cast and the new Fox cast and say, maybe they were just in two different timelines, because it doesn't add up at all, like even remotely. Like, especially if you look at them in Dark Phoenix, and then what is it, 10 years later they're supposed to be that age in X-Men.
Yeah, but you can do that with pretty much all of the first class movies. But it's like, but also at the same time though, it's like, okay, Deadpool was in X-Men Origins, so you can also just remove the X-Men films and look at the first two Deadpool and then the first three Wolverine movies. It's like, is Deadpool in that same universe? Like, does Logan happen in the same universe as Deadpool? It's like, no, right? So, I mean, if I had rewatched the opening of this film, because there's one Earth where he goes to talk to Jon Favreau, to Happy Hogan. There's one Earth over here. It's like, I know that he can go anywhere, but I wish we just had clarification, like, which Wolverine was Deadpool's Wolverine? Was it the Logan one? Or was it the one? It can't be the X-Men Origins one because that's a different Deadpool. So
Yeah.
I kind of just wish we had an extra second to nail that down. And again, that goes back to what I said at the beginning of the pod, where I kind of wish this was more about being more on the nose with Fox as a studio and its continuity.
What I gathered is that Logan is his Wolverine, the Logan from Logan. That's what I gathered, and X-23 is in his world, his universe. But then I start to think about it, and I'm like, they were after mutants, and they were going and killing the kid mutants, and all the X-Men were dead. But while that was happening, and I know it's supposed to happen in the distant future, so I'd also like to know the time gap between that and the events of Logan, the second Deadpool, the events of Logan. So, but at the same time, Deadpool's throwing a birthday party with his friends while all the while all the mutants are being hunted down, and all these crazy tragic things are happening worldwide, and Professor X apparently killed a bunch of people, and Deadpool's over here with his friends making jokes, and I'm like, that's supposed to be in the same universe. It's kind of hurting my head because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
and maybe acknowledge that a little bit more.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, the more this movie is saying that Logan from Logan is Deadpool's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because again, it's his death that's compromising Deadpool's family going away.
His universe.
So, but again, the fact that Logan takes place in the future compared to where Deadpool is, it's just like, I just feel, if you want to tell us why it makes sense, fine, but I think it just needed an extra second to again explain that.
I'm with you.
So,
yeah.
That's really it. But it would have been a neater transition from Fox to Marvel Studios.
Yep, I agree.
But either way, I mean, whatever. We still got exactly what this. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that we got that special video where Ryan Reynolds is sitting on the couch and he's just like, I'm out of ideas, but hey, Hugh, do you want to play Wolverine again? It's like, to think anything other than this movie delivered exactly what it's just, yeah. So it's not that it's flawless, but at the same time, it's just like, what am I going to complain about?
It's very easy to sit and nitpick the plot, and that's why I'm not getting like super upset. I don't like when the reviews that are negative are super condescending, like, God, just the dumbest. If you like this, you're dumb. And it's I've seen people say it's the worst movie of the year, and it just spreads ignorance. And I'm like, all right, you sound a little condescending at this point, whatever. But at the same time, I do understand why people are nitpicking and have some issues with the plot, this and that. I mean, even at the beginning of the movie when he's going around all these different universes, seeing these different Wolverines, it's like we see Hugh Jackman, and then there's Henry Cavill as a different Wolverine, and it's like, that's... I guess you could say the same thing with the Fantastic Four. There's John Krasinski and there's a Pedro Pascal now, and so whatever. Yeah. But we got Henry Cavill as Wolverine. What did you think about that, man? I was like, this is cool. He's just ripped.
Well, before I forget, I want to make sure that people understand, because again, we're trying to be as objective as possible. But at the same time, I'm nowhere in this podcast have I said this is the best Deadpool movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where it even falls in, post Endgame in the MCU. It's not the greatest MCU movie ever, and we'll definitely do a ranking eventually. So I just want to make sure people also don't seem to think I'm being hyperbolic, like this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm just happy. Yeah. So we mentioned the Hulk fight. I went to the bathroom at what might be the most inconvenient time. So I saw what must have been the last frame of Hulk. So if there was a fight, I didn't see it. But I did hear, it seemed like it was a frame of Hulk and then a joke from Deadpool about them fighting. And so that's just all I have. So I laughed. I was walking back to my seat when that happened, and I just kind of laughed, and it clicked. Oh, they acknowledged Hulk. I didn't even know there was a fight, though.
No, you didn't miss anything. It was as brief as you could imagine. But it was also something I'm like, why would they plant that seed if there wasn't? Because I don't know if you saw, there's now a rumored Hulk versus Wolverine project in the works, and so if they're going to tease that, that was the best way to do it. I would love to, because that animated 30-minute thing that they did a couple years ago is one of my favorite things Marvel's ever done. So it was cool. It was cool, but it was a small part of that big Wolverine montage, if you will.
I loved seeing Cavill's cameo. Loved it. I kind of can't believe that there's a joke where Ryan Reynolds or Deadpool says, "We'll treat you better than the other guys down the street." But I think what I'm most surprised by is I'm the kind of person that hates fan castings.
Sure.
I never want to hear anybody say that Idris Elba should be James Bond again. Stop it. Stop it. I've had enough. I hated it super early on in that rumors run. I'm even more pissed. Just stop. Just stop it. But Cavill being Wolverine, not as much, but that's kind of been an annoying thing that I've just
Sure.
I get why people think that that'd be a good idea. I've just never been in that campaign where I'm like, I've never even been like a Daniel Radcliffe should be Wolverine, but Tom Hardy as Wolverine's another one. Like, I get all these fan castings. I've just never been in any of their camps.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of can't believe that he was just Wolverine for like 3 seconds. I was like, holy shit, he could do that if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And it might be like Hugh Jackman-esque or like a, sort of like an impersonation, but at the same time, in 3 seconds, I was like, that's actually like even more successful than Krasinski as Reed Richards.
Did you see how big that man was? I mean,
Yeah.
we know he's big because we saw him shirtless in Superman. But dude, the shot of his arm going around the back, I knew immediately it wasn't Hugh Jackman. And that's not to say Hugh Jackman isn't just the most ripped man on the planet, because he looks phenomenal. But Cavill has the rippedness, but he has the bulkiness. And when I saw him turn around, my brain said, "That's Wolverine." Like that's Wolverine. And it's the perfect thing to do, right? Because just coming off of Superman, just coming off of The Witcher, he's been in the trades consistently for a year now. Get this man in there, make a joke about DC, and plant the seed for something cool down the line. And I don't think we'll ever get it, to be honest with you. But, dude, that was so freaking cool. Like, and maybe if they hear enough clamoring now, that could be an option. And Cavill's willing to do it, because he did it. And so, dude, I loved it. And it could have just been a Krasinski acknowledgement, but I wouldn't mind if it was more than that, to be honest with you.
I actually don't interpret it as... I literally think it's exactly what went down with Krasinski. The fact that they just called him up and said, "Hey, do you want to come play with us for a few minutes? Come down here. We'll do this thing for the fans," and blah, 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 blah. I personally think John Krasinski, as an actor, never had any intention of playing a Marvel superhero. I think the only reason he did it is because it was never supposed to be anything more than what it was. So I actually think Cavill, I think that it's exactly the same thing. What's different, though, is that like I literally saw that character in 3 seconds. More than I did. And so my takeaway from it isn't like I'm doubling down, Cavill should be the next Wolverine. What I think it does do, though, is help me comprehend that another actor will play this character eventually. That's what I felt in the moment. I was like, yeah, they could. I think it would be okay if they announced another Wolverine in the next couple of years.
That's fair.
And as an audience, we'd figure it out. I think we can. That doesn't mean that any of the reverence and the respect, that doesn't mean any of that goes away. I just think it's an easier pill to swallow now that we've literally seen another character play him now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, would I love to see him, Cavill, down the line play him? Yeah, absolutely. And we see that someone can get a little older like Hugh Jackman has and still work. I mean, look at Hugh Jackman's age. and look at how good he looks. Plus, I feel like with every movie that he does over this 20-year span, he gets better. Now, his best performance is still Logan. Okay, I'm not taking away from that. But he keeps embracing this character more and more and more. And first of all, the guy looks good. It seems like he doesn't age. But even as he ages, I don't mind that he's a little older playing Wolverine.
Yeah.
And even 10 years from now, if Marvel pulls him out of their pocket for Secret Wars, I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's go. And so they're going to recast eventually. I'm now I'm with you. I'm now a lot more okay with that than I was. But I'm also kind of holding on to your X-23 theory, like, that would be cool too. So whichever direction they go, I'm going to be happy.
Well, honestly, the introduction of the yellow suit means he doesn't have to get jacked. If he's in Secret Wars and he's a part of 1/6 of Secret Wars, based on the size, it's like he doesn't have to do it. And I honestly think, and I support this 100%, but Hugh Jackman said something, and he kind of expressed this in like his Hot Ones and a few other interviews. But he said that this movie... Oh, no, let me rephrase. One of the producers, I think her name's like Holly Jacobson or something. She's a blonde producer. She did this, and she was a part of She-Hulk. She said that on set, Hugh Jackman, she heard him say that what they were doing with this story scratched an itch that he's been trying to do with this character as long as he's played him.
Yep.
I think... And Hugh Jackman, even 10 years ago, was like, wouldn't it be amazing if I could team up with the Avengers? And RDJ, it's like, I think Hugh Jackman is playing this character 2 or 3 more times in the MCU. I really do. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a World War Hulk movie that is super set in the MCU, but we get a little bit of him in there, the way that we got a little bit of Hulk in Ragnarok or something. Like, I think it's going to happen. I think Hugh Jackman wants to have sort of an RDJ role in the MCU now. And I think we're going to get Hugh Jackman and Toby together. Like, I think all of this stuff, more than ever, is going to come true.
Well, you guys hate multiverse. You better buckle up. It's going to be... Secret Wars is going to be crazy, man.
But even... Ryan Reynolds hasn't spoken a word about his retirement. Like, he does it in the sense that, like, I don't know, do the fans want another one? Like, the story has to be right, but it's not like he acts like he puts a kibosh on when he's gonna be done with this character. So the fact that they're kind of doing this together, I think helps the cause too. I think both of them can keep each other ramped. I think they're having the time of their life right now.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're done. This movie's going to make $1 billion, and we're just going to figure this out.
Well, and the movie literally ends with them together, right? I part of me when that was happening, and Logan was going to go sacrifice himself, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect way to write him out. If you want to write him out, you can write him out. He goes and sacrifices himself. You've got 2 dead Logans, okay? But the fact that they didn't do that, and they keep him around, and they give you a happy ending, with X-23 sitting there as well, I'm thinking the possibilities are endless. Not just with Deadpool. With Wolverine, with X-23, and every character there, because we have our Colossus as well. And so I am fascinated. I couldn't begin to tell you the direction they're going to go. If they're going to bring them back into our MCU universe, if they're going to take the MCU universe, if they're going to have this off-world, off-universe battle, and that's what Secret Wars is. It's all these versions of our characters. That's what it seems like, because the rumor I've heard about Fantastic Four is that it's a different universe of those characters. And so that seems like it makes the most sense, and introducing Galactus is a good threat to have in the background. But I have no clue. But if you want to introduce these other versions of these X-Men characters, you can just take that version of Deadpool and that version of Wolverine and send them off-world. Send them to that universe. And so I'm cool with that. I'm cool with whatever they decide to do. I'm cool with it. But But yeah, the multiverse is going to be a factor for the next couple of years at least, because it has to be with these three, actually.
Do we still believe that this seems silly because we're going to probably find out tomorrow from the Comic-Con panel.
Sure.
But the new X-Men series of movies isn't going to happen until Secret Wars is done, right? So I think Secret Wars brings together Fox, Sony, Marvel Studios for the final time. I think that's what, we still got Kelsey Grammer's Beast out there. We've acknowledged that Patrick Stewart's in the MCU. I mean, I just think Secret Wars comes to a head with all of those pre-existing actors playing those characters, and then that's when we move on to the new X-Men. Like I don't see Hugh Jackman and Deadpool being on screen with Taron Egerton as Wolverine or
Sure.
Like I just don't see that happening. I don't know if Hugh Jackman will meet, but maybe it could. I mean, that's literally what No Way Home was. So,
but it would be interesting though if Secret Wars, like you said, combines all those things and all these characters these less grounded characters we have now in the MCU, and then of course the Spider-Men and the X-Men characters, and then once that's over, once the war ends, everyone goes back to their own universes and they stay there.
Yeah.
So you can still make Deadpool movies at that point. You can still bring a new X-Men, usher a new X-Men into the MCU. And my hope after that is that the MCU becomes a lot more grounded. We're still going to have the fantastical stuff and the stuff happening in space, but when I say grounded, I mean you've got your Daredevils going on, you got your Spider-Man going on, and now he doesn't have that connection to the Stark Tech, and you've got your grounded X-Men, and they're dealing with all of those themes and so many things that the original X-Men movies hit on, but from the comics, there's so much more you can do thematically with them, and maybe that's the point where superhero movies start to become fresh again. Okay, we've got this grounded universe. We're focusing on way more grounded characters. We'll get a Thor movie every 4 years. But other than that, I would be interested if after Secret Wars and after that big final explosion, everything separates once again. We're done with the Fox universe, except for Deadpool. We're done with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and we just get to focus on the grounded elements of the MCU. That's my hope for that.
This goes back to the point I made too, where I wish Kevin Feige was able to kind of halt things after the Fox acquisition and reassess everything that he had at his disposal, because I think that's where the Marvel special presentations really could have helped. What if Loki didn't happen as it happened? What if WandaVision didn't happen as it happened? What if there was just a Marvel special presentation where we tuned in and Loki from Endgame went into the TVA, and in an hour-long special on Disney Plus, he was able to see his life, see Thor's life, but also take a look at Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and take a look at, and he was able to see what fans have seen for the past 20 years. And what if Loki can see X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, and all these continuities, and he literally starts to, as we see with all these strings, starts combining them and moving them together. Or this is like, look, we just found out an anchor being, and they show a clip from Logan, an anchor being has died, and this universe is going away, but this character, and then they show Deadpool, this character might, it's like, I just wish for an hour we could have done this. And it had been a little cleaner. Because, I mean, again, it's like, so what are the special presentations? It's just like, the holiday special was fun, but it's like, it doesn't...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just... Maybe that is a good exercise in that, but Werewolf by Night, too, it's just like, I don't know what that is. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. They've come up with all these things to do, but I don't think they found the best uses for them. So, anyway.
It makes you think too. The anchor being wouldn't Tony Stark be the anchor being of the MCU universe?
Yeah.
Wouldn't he? I mean,
Well,
he'd have to be, right?
I don't know. Maybe not. But then again,
And his
it's
dad.
like, but that would be an admission. That would, I think, tell the audience to not care about the MCU if they did something like that.
Sure.
Like that would be a little too much. I mean, they can make
the
an anchor
nose.
being out of Logan because those movies, we don't have to deal with them anymore.
They're done. Yeah.
But if you say Robert Downey Jr. is the anchor being in this, I mean, I get to your point. Yes, if the conversation of could we have just reset the MCU after Endgame?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then and he just start. We could have literally just started in the universe with the Fantastic Four. Yes,
Yeah.
to your point, you're right.
Yeah.
We could have done that.
I guess he's the metaphorical for a lot of people, anchor being, because after he died, everything fell apart. Metaphorically, of course. No, I understand why they're not going to acknowledge anything like that. And there were questions brought up in this movie where you could apply it to other things. It's like, okay, and the stakes. I mean, if you think about the stakes of Deadpool and Wolverine, they were massive because Cassandra Nova was going to destroy all of the timelines, and so this is some of the biggest stakes we've ever seen in an MCU project. But at the end of the day, the fact that the focus was so solely put on Deadpool and Wolverine, and I know we haven't talked about it too much, but just to hit on that third act where you get that video game shot of Deadpool and Wolverine just mowing through all those alternate versions of Deadpool. They jump out of the back of the bus. Wolverine's full-on berserker pose. I mean, just, God, comic book glory with his mask on. I was actually really satisfied. So during the first act, I was upset. I'm like, why doesn't he have his mask on? I want to see his mask. But the build-up ended up being worth it because the moment he puts his mask on and the sleeves are ripped off, it's over at that point. And we get full Wolverine glory. And when they both jump out of the bus, I looked at John, I looked at my brother, and I'm like, are we doing this right now? It was awesome, dude. Awesome. Now, the Deadpools were crazy. That was an insane sequence. I think a little too much happened in there, to be honest with you. But it was funny, it was fun, and it delivered so many fan moments. It was awesome.
About halfway through the movie, I thought to myself, we still need to see the mask.
We've got to see the mask.
Not in a I knew it was coming. It was something I was anticipating. So then when it happened, it just it was unbelievable.
Sweet.
So much fun. And it's just that's the kind of stuff that you always dream of seeing that. So it's funny you mentioned the stakes. On paper, those are the biggest stakes. I don't know that I felt them in the movie, to be honest.
Not at all.
But
not at all.
I mean, but again, that's kind of what goes back to the fact that if it's a comedy and if it's a Deadpool movie, then maybe that's okay. And then the argument becomes, well, Deadpool also wants to sell you on the fact that this movie has such an emotional core. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I think there's some there. I don't think it's fully successful in that way. That goes back to the fact that we didn't fully see Wolverine's backstory unfolded. And so did you see that that's what went into the explanation with the Daphne Keane reveal? Did you see that on Twitter today?
I didn't see anything today. What exactly?
Kevin Feige was asked what's up with Daphne Keane in the final trailer. And his response was literally, Daphne Keane wanted to come to the premiere of the movie.
I figured.
And the marketing team thought that that's how you sell the emotional core of the film. Oh. So when Logan's talking about how he doesn't take the suit off anymore because that Scott and whatever, always wanted him to wear the suit. And so it just falls in line with that idea. So that's why they did it.
Well, I disagree with the marketing team. I don't think we needed that.
I agree.
I don't think anyone needed that. This movie would have made $40 million regardless opening night. Okay, we didn't need that. It's a great trailer. I appreciate it, but it pissed me off, to be honest with you. Now, the Daphne Keane thing, if she would have showed up to that red carpet, we would have known. That I get, because she deserves to enjoy herself. She is going through the coolest. This is peak for her. Like I peaked in high school, she's peaking right now. She is the ultimate Easter egg in one of the biggest movies of this century, possibly, and she's playing a character that she is loved, known for, just respected in, and she's getting her chance to come back on screen with Deadpool and Wolverine. If she wants to go to the red carpet and celebrate that, who am I to stop her? So I can't get too mad about that, and that is the reason why, I believe, a big reason why she was in the trailer. So sure, we would have known regardless, fine, whatever. So she needs to celebrate this moment because it's one of the coolest things that'll ever happen to her, to be honest with you.
Do you watch those red carpet premieres when they stream on YouTube?
No.
Okay. I've watched a lot of them.
Okay.
Pre-Infinity War even. But post Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah.
I hate being like this, but America Chavez is at like all of them. Like she's always,
really?
Yeah. If we're not talking to the main cast of whatever movie we're seeing, she's like the special add-on. And I've always just been like, I know that there are people that like that character and appreciate Multiverse of Madness, but that's just like never been the appearance I've wanted on the red carpet. And the fact that we didn't get to have Toby and Andrew on the red carpet,
I know,
kind of sucks. So It's like Daphne Keane belonged at the red carpet.
She deserves
for
it.
this movie.
She deserves
it. Yeah. So anyway, I said America Chavez, Xochitl Gomez.
Oh yeah.
Just so I'm not completely disrespectful, I should at least say the actress's name, not go by the character name. But I will also say I have not seen Multiverse of Madness on rewatch. I have only seen it the one time in theaters, so I don't.
Okay.
It's not always at the front of my mind. Sorry if that came off disrespectful, but at the same time, why is she at every red carpet?
You're right.
Like, I mean, come on, let's be real.
You're right. Yeah.
Like if it was Wong, I would get it. But I mean,
Sure.
we've only seen her in one movie, and
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that point. You got anything else on this?
I mean, movie-wise, are there any characters? I liked Peter's role. Peter was funny. I liked that he was the reason why they all stopped fighting at the end. I know that was so stupid. And
Yeah.
that's one of those jokes where I feel like so many people are going to be like, that wasn't funny. I think it's funny. It's that type of random, stupid Rick and Morty style humor that I really like sometimes. So that was hilarious to me. I do wish we would have gotten more with your Colossus, your Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Like, those were integral characters for the first two. They were background characters for this, but they were the driving motivation for what Deadpool was doing here, and they wanted this to be more of a Wolverine movie. I understand that. So hopefully in the next one they become more prominent. Other than those two things, I mean, yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it. Are there any Easter eggs, cameos we haven't mentioned? I think we talked about, Chris Evans' Human Torch. I know we hit on it, but the post-credit scene was really funny. I mean, it was really, really funny. To see Evans in that atmosphere just reverse Captain America, almost the opposite, was kind of cool since it's in the MCU technically.
First of all, you covered a lot. I'll say that I agree that Negasonic and Colossus, this should have been a part of the third act, for sure.
Agreed.
It sucks that Vanessa, she's such a great part of the first Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
I hate how she's just kind of been sidelined as sort of like a launch pad for the plot of the last two movies. Like, so that's a little disappointing. I feel like Marvel Studios, if anybody, was going to put her... I can't remember what character she plays, what hero she plays. It's like a cat name or something. But I feel like...
Meow, meow.
I feel like that should have been part of it. I kind of don't get why Nice Pool... Why does he look fake? Didn't he look like a deep fake of Ryan Reynolds It was
little bit.
weird. It was like too digital. I legitimately think they did de-aging on Ryan Reynolds, and I didn't understand that, to be honest. He looks fake to me. I couldn't figure that out exactly. And also, I'm not even sure I understand what happened in the third act. I'm not gonna lie. I like with the machine and Cassandra Nova, and then the fact that they bridged the two. I honestly don't know exactly what I watched. It's okay, but I'm gonna need to rewatch the movie again because I guess I got lost somewhere with the line of dialogue. But anyway, I'm not exactly sure what I saw, but it's all good.
And the first watch, if you're enjoying something that much, that's always, you're trying to catch every joke, you're trying to soak in every cool moment. And so, yeah, I have that experience pretty often with like superhero movies because I'm just having the time of my life. And then it's like, oh, what are they doing at the end of No Way Home? What's going on here? So, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. A little confusing, but seeing them hold hands and then Hugh Jackman's shirt getting ripped off. And I want to take my wife, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want that to be your expectation, so maybe not.
Johnny Torch, seeing Chris Evans play that role, did you know it was coming? The only thing I thought you did know it was coming.
Well, I knew the moment. So they tried to pull this bait and switch of he's not actually Captain America, he's Human Torch. But the second I saw him, I'm like, that's Human Torch. Because I just saw the 20th Century logo, I saw all this, I'm like, that's Human Torch. He didn't even have to say a word for me to know that was Human Torch.
Okay. I wouldn't go that far. When he spoke, I instantly knew that it was Chris Evans. But what I thought was weird is that he's wearing like red and white cloth on his arms. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why would you do that but also hide his face? Like, it didn't add up. To me. So I knew something was up. Because it's like, Captain America wouldn't wear that.
Yeah.
So I knew that it was a fake out. And then, I pretty much arrived at the reveal about the time the reveal happened. So I wasn't like entirely surprised by Flame On, but either way, that's the kind of stuff that like, I don't remember those movies, but I know this is such a stupid thing, but if we're going to dive this deep into superhero fandom, we might as well. I don't remember him coming off that way. Because it was almost like we saw Boston Chris Evans.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't remember Johnny being like that in the Tim Story Fantastic Fours. It doesn't matter, but part of me was like, is he really playing this character the same way?
Yeah, it was a little different. I guess you could argue if you wanted to say, well, he's grizzled over time. He's been in the void for a while. He's
the R rating. The R rating opens him up.
R rating for sure. And so I think that's the argument they would make. But at the same time, you're right. Even the accent was like just like slightly different. And I'm like, I don't know, because I just rewatched these movies a couple months ago. It didn't seem like the same character to me, but then you could also say, oh, well, that was just another version of him. So there's so many excuses for that.
What was the Daredevil joke? I think I missed it. So did he say sorry about Daredevil like it was a divorced Ben Affleck joke? Is that what it was?
And Jennifer Connelly said something along the lines of we don't need him anyway, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. You said Jennifer Connelly.
Garner. Yeah, no, sorry. Jennifer Garner.
Before the internet comments.
Different Jennifer. Jennifer Garner, she essentially was like, I don't need him. So
Jennifer Connelly, also in the MCU, though. She plays,
right.
What's her face for Spider-Man.
You're right.
What was the other thing I was going to ask you about the cameos? I've seen another cynical take, like, what's up with celebrating Elektra and Jennifer Garner? I think it kind of goes back to this idea that, like, I think part of what was so special, even though there's been a lot of rewriting of history in terms of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I think for a particular sect of the audience, we were like happy to see Garfield in a good Spider-Man movie. Yes. So I think that's what it is. Like I think it's just that we like to see these characters that we remember we want to remember them more fondly, and so it's actually cool. But again, it goes back to that fandom thing where it's like, yeah, Fox made Elektra, Fox made Daredevil, but it's like, why doesn't Jennifer Garner show up in an X-Men movie at any point? Why isn't Jennifer Garner in X-Men Origins Wolverine? Like, it just goes back to that. So it's like, yeah, that's just the kind of stuff that we've been waiting for. So it's like, yeah, does it come off ridiculous because nobody cares about that Elektra movie? It's universally panned and just like not remembered. But it's like that's what goes back to it. It's like we have fond memories of this stuff. So we want to see this kind of stuff acknowledged and make it make sense, that kind of thing. So,
well, and now the last memory we're going to have of her is, unless she comes back for some reason, is her in this movie. And so the last memory we have now, whereas it was Elektra, and even for Blade, the third Blade movie stinks. That movie stinks. We remember the first two, but the third one stinks. And now it's like, oh, the last time we saw this character, he's in a fun movie. He's in a good movie. And so that's cool that we have that for her, for him, and I guess to a degree for Channing Tatum. But I did love how they just made fun of his accent the whole time. Because apparently that was one of the issues behind the scenes for that movie that they never made. And so that was hilarious. But I will be honest, man. My brother, after the movie, he was like, those Gambit scenes were really cool. Like, genuinely, his power set, how he used them, how he used the cards, and the moment where he put all the cards and all the bad guys and they all exploded. Dude, that's some of the coolest stuff in the whole movie. And so Gambit, Channing Tatum as Gambit got a lot of stuff to do that was awesome, and that was really cool to see.
That's another thing, too, is that I loved that it referenced that non-existent movie, and it's a payoff for fans who were kind of waiting for that. But at the same time, it's not like I'm wishing... I agree with your brother, but I'm not wishing for a Channing Tatum Gambit movie. It's like, if that character was going to exist, it should be in that movie and only that movie. Because, the joke about his accent and things like that, it's like, that Gambit movie, that would have been like a Madam Web thing. Like, I feel like there was a portion of the fandom that already knew that was a bad idea. Yeah. Like, they wanted a cool Gambit movie, for sure. But at the same time, some of us were like, it's what Sony does with their Spider-Man movies. It's like, it's just these spin-off movies that just don't amount to anything. That's what that Gambit movie was all along to me. So it never bothered me that it died. But if you're going to do it in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, Gambit seems like a character that is much more of a supporting character. And that's why the Sony stuff confuses me. It's like, why are you taking all these supporting characters and giving them their own film? It's so stupid. Madam Web is literally just a puzzle piece within the story of Spider-Man. And you're trying to give her her own movie? It's such a strange idea. It's like it was never going to work to start with.
You know what also doesn't make sense? Like, if we're talking about zooming out and looking at a comic book movie universe, this sounds ridiculous, but having bad movies in a universe doesn't make sense either. I know that's such a weird idea, but it's like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's pretty obvious. Like, yeah, a bad movie will ruin the taste in your mouth when it comes to it. But it's like, it's just such a weird idea that you can have a bad movie in a comic book universe and like a character pop up in a team-up movie. And then like, yeah, but the last time we saw that character, it was in a shit movie. Like, that doesn't work. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. All of it should be connected. All of it should be consistent in quality. Like, it's like, so yeah, maybe that's not a hard thing to grasp. It's pretty obvious, actually. But the other thing, too, is that when you shit out movies like this, then you waste castings. That's like one of these like OCD anal things that bothers me as a fandom. It's like, so like, now what do you do? What are you doing with Aaron Taylor Johnson when he already plays his character in the Marvel Universe? Why are you wasting Sydney Sweeney? And it's like, but Hollywood doesn't know. Producers don't know when they have a bad movie, to be fair. But, like, Brandon Davis, interviewed Lorenzo Di Bonaventura
Saw that.
and straight up asked him, and the guy's just like, that's what's frustrating sometimes being a fan of this kind of stuff, because it's almost like Lorenzo Di Bonaventura never even considered that Madame Web wouldn't be a success. And he's like, yeah, it was just like a gut punch. You see those numbers, and then it's just like, us as fans get frustrated with that kind of stuff because it's like, dude, you're just in your own bubble.
It's so obvious. So
Like,
obvious.
So that kind of stuff hurts me. Like, to see that guy just be completely oblivious to the fact that Madame Web never should have been made. It's just like, these people don't know what the hell they're doing. But what I know is that it's just going to be weird for fans when you cast Sydney Sweeney as Black Cat or whatever they're going to do. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. It reminds me of they put Elba in Thor. He played like not the Watcher, but the guy who sees all. And I'm like, it's kind of not terrible movies, but it's kind of a waste of this guy's talent, because you could have had him.
Yeah.
You could have had him something bigger and something better. And same thing with Sydney Sweeney. It's like, maybe they didn't know she was going to be this caliber star, but she's got more than this. And so, it stinks to see that. It really does.
I'd honestly be curious to know if the casting process is totally different for superhero movies. Because, I think you hear sometimes about there are actors who just go and have general meetings, like Jeremy Allen White. He talked about how he had just a general meeting with Marvel Studios, and he said that he kind of just failed the meeting because he said he asked Marvel Studios what they had in mind, and he acted like it was beneath him and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if studios just have those types of general meetings, like, hey, do you see yourself as a superhero? And so, like, the Idris Elba thing, I think, honestly, a lot of those examples come down to the actors just straight up like, yeah, I would love to play in this sandbox, but I don't want to spend more than 10 days on set. I only, like, Christian Bale. Christian Bale played that character because he's never played a villain before in a superhero movie, and he probably asked to never come back. So it's like, I think if we knew more about the contracts and how actors negotiate that kind of stuff, we would just hear more about, like, Idris Elba was one of these guys. He told us no on playing, whatever it is, Blade, but he said he'd be good to play a supporting character. I think there's just a lot of that goes on that we just aren't aware of. But
you just reminded me that Christian Bale's in the MCU. So
exactly, isn't that weird?
Makes me sad.
Yeah, it's odd. What else? Do you ever get the feeling when you talk about movies, do you ever get the feeling that you haven't even begun to scratch the surface, even though we've been recording for an hour and a half?
Yeah, well, especially with one like this, with about 1,000 things happening at the same time. There's a lot that goes on in this movie, man.
Yeah. I think that's about it, though. I mean, I know more's going to come out. I'm going to assume that at the end of August, we're going to decide to do our movie mode MCU rankings. I'm going to do one personally on Watch Diary on the Rewatch Ryan channel here soon. But I think we're going to come together and sort of just talk about the state of the MCU. We'll do a fun ranking, and that'll be coming up here in a matter of weeks.
What, real quick, before we end this thing, what are your thoughts on the tweets this morning, actually last night, from Deadline, Entertainment Weekly, a couple others, just blatantly spilling spoilers to all of the people that have notifications on and may see them on their home feed, and pretty much everybody on Twitter. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, to be honest. So what I will say is that I knew to have every combination of Deadpool and Wolverine as keywords muted on Twitter. So I'm also very I've been very anti-spoilers online my entire podcast career, and I've always butted heads with people. back when Walking Dead fans, when they were completely insufferable about tweeting every single goddamn thing that happened in that show immediately
Live tweet
without abandon, I remember just being like, are you new to, is this the first thing you've ever been a fan of? Like, have you ever watched another television show in your life to the point where you think Walking Dead is the greatest thing in the world and you have to tweet it? And the other side of the argument is, well, if you don't want to see it, you shouldn't be on Twitter. And I get that to an extent. I've never been in that camp because there's just ways to talk about things without spoiling it. I can live tweet an episode of any TV show without spoiling it, because when you tweet things like that, the only people that are going to see spoilers, the only people that are ever going to see your tweets or spoilers are people who know exactly what you're talking about because they've watched the thing, and the people who haven't. Those are the only options. People who have no idea what you're tweeting about, or the people that do. And the people that do know what you're talking about because they've seen the thing don't need you to have said specifically what happened because they know what you're talking about. So that's why every time I've live tweeted a thing, it just you should just be able to be like, oh my God, that was crazy. I can't believe that happened. # The Walking Dead. And then the people who saw that will like it and retweet it, and you all can have a private conversation. It's like, that's how that stuff works. So feeling compelled to just literally write the thing that happened has never made sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on that. I've been burned way too many times. I've learned years ago to just mute the things that I don't want to see. I don't like that I have to do that because you've heard my stance on it. But whether it's discussing film, whether it's somebody was going to do it first, though. So I think, to answer your question, if discussing film didn't do it, another outlet would have done it. So I think that's how they think. I think when discussing film does something like this, I think they know that it sucks. I genuinely do. But it just comes down to, this is our culture. Do we just go on and do it, or do we let Screen Rant do it? So I think they consciously know what they're doing every time. Because I think that's part of what confuses fandom. It's, why would you do this? That's the why. I think they are just like, it's going to happen. It might as well be us. And I think that's why they do it. So
I'll give discussing film credit, though, because I won't lump them into this with the deadlines and the Entertainment Weeklies just because they actually didn't include the names in their tweet. They did post the video, but they didn't say explicitly. They said spoilers in this video. So I'll give them a little credit, even though they kind of did it. But Deadline, Entertainment Weekly, like the names, it's like, why do you have to put? Because the moment you put Wesley Snipes, it's like people know. People know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it. Like I said, I don't like that it happens, but I don't know. Maybe I've just grown numb to it, or I've succumbed to the culture, and that's why I'm muting words and things like that. But I think there's different... This could be a whole other conversation about spoiler culture, I feel like.
Sure.
Because, I mean, there are times and there are places for sure. Because, it's not like I haven't tweeted a spoiler in a movie in the last week. Not from a movie that was released in theaters in the last few days. But it's at a certain point, we just start tweeting whatever we want about Nightcrawler or Prisoners or posting scenes from... Of course, there's a time and a place. But that's always something that I've gone back to when I've talked about spoiler culture. And people, feeling compelled to just write something that happened has never made sense to me.
Yeah.
Those are your two audiences. The audiences that have no clue what you're talking about, so you can only ruin it for them.
Yep.
That's the only option. If the person doesn't know what you are talking about, you've only ruined that thing for them. And then the people who do know what you're talking about, who didn't need you to write it literally, because they already knew. Like, that's how I've always looked at it. So I've gotten in so many Facebook fights over that, when people would be like, just, no, if you haven't seen a movie, it's like, but this is the age of the DVR. This is the age of the streaming. This is the age of people watching Lost for the first time. Yeah, maybe that's a bad example, because I don't need to spoil Lost every day, but at the same time, I don't feel as bad about it because it's old. But it's like, I think that's worth talking about. It's like, now that if people are discovering Lost right now, it's like, who's going to who's going to discover Game of Thrones next year? Mm-hmm. It's like, is there a better way to communicate these stories with each other? I don't know. Is it impossible to police? 100%.
Yeah.
So maybe it isn't. But again, it always just goes back to, like, I can talk about something I can talk to you about this movie on Twitter. You and I could go back and forth on Twitter and talk about this movie without me writing every single literal thing that happened in the movie.
Yep.
So anyway, that's just always been my take on it. I think less people are on forums. I mean, it's not like Reddit isn't huge. So, like, if you're on Reddit and you're talking to people, yeah, of course, that's like a community-based.
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, I've just never understood just writing in a Facebook post, like, can't believe Negan just battered the shit out of Glenn with a barbed wire baseball bat and his eye fell out of his head. It's just like, I've never understood that. Yeah, as you can tell, I have a lot of aggression towards Walking Dead fans.
Yeah. I think, and part of it is too, I guess you could partially put the blame on Marvel Studios for having that panel last night and having it in the way that they had it, bringing everybody out on stage. Now, granted, I am really happy seeing that as somebody who's already seen the movie, thinking it's super cool to see all those guys get their applause. That's awesome. But, and again, when you are a Deadline, a Hollywood Reporter, even a discussing film, you're going to want to be on top of this and get the information out there first. And so that's what they were doing. They were getting the information out there first, paying no mind to the millions of people who have not seen this movie or can't see it opening night, or we're waiting until Sunday because my dad's coming into town. It's those types of things that you have to at least somewhat consider when you're posting it. And look, Marvel had the panel, so people were going to post the videos online. But a lot of people are subscribed and have notifications on and rely on Deadline, Hollywood Reporter for news and things like that. And so I'd say most of them haven't seen the movie, and when they get that notification, oh, boom, 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 that's spoiled for me now. And so I'm not going to get the same reaction in the theater that maybe I had seeing those guys for the first time. And so I think about the people who were spoiled and ruined, and I had a tweet out there this morning, and I had a lot of people in my replies saying, I muted every word I possibly could, but I had notifications on. And so, boom, 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 you're ruined. And so that sucks, man. Like, I saw some tweets defending them. It's like, come on, guys, you understand that they're a blah, blah. I don't care. You're ruining the movie for people. You're ruining the movie. And some of the fault can be put on Marvel for having that panel and knowing information was going to be out there. But as a big, Deadline's one of the top in the world, you should know better, and you should be more responsible with that type of information. So that's what pissed me off, and I just feel like people should be held accountable for doing it, but they never are. And that's the thing. Like, some random fan tweets at me a spoiler, okay, they're just some little asswipe. But if you're doing that and you work for Deadline,
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I don't know. I'm coming from a more apathetic place where it's just like, I just don't know what to do. I mean, there are people.
There's nothing you can do.
And I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm saying that there are people who don't think the X-23 reveal is a spoiler. Like there is a sentiment. If something is in a trailer, it's not a spoiler.
Sure.
So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean,
I don't like it.
I understand the idea. Like, if something's in the trailer, then that's just something that you can know going into the movie. I understand that belief. Very fair.
Yep.
But I also remember the most pissed I've ever been at a trailer was I think, second trailer for Batman v Superman, where they showed the reveal of Doomsday, and then it's the whole Wonder Woman reveal. Is she with you? I thought she was with you. Showing that moment in the trailer completely undercuts your entire premise of the movie.
Yep.
Granted, so does the title of the movie. I've always thought Dawn of Justice is the stupidest fucking thing that you can call a movie called Batman v Superman. Like, if you want to have a colon subtitle, fine. Dawn of Justice? You morons. That's why every instinct Zack Snyder has is god-awful as a filmmaker. Every single one. Anyway, who else can I piss off? Walking Dead fans, Snyder fans? I don't disagree. I just don't know what there is to do because there's too many people that don't care. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I hope whoever did that worked for Deadline and EW, whatever, I hope they see the hate. And maybe it fuels them. Maybe they're the type of person that sees it and they're like, God, I love it. I want to tweet more shit and piss more people off. Maybe that's who they are. That's fine. But I really hope people hate on them so hard without going overboard, obviously. Not tell anybody bully people, although these people might need to be bullied. I hope they hate so hard that it pushes them to do a little better next time. Maybe just do what Discussing Film did and say, here's the panel, watch the video at your own whatever, there you go. And so maybe they change, but I doubt, because they've done it many, many times. And putting Wesley Snipes, name in it, Channing Tatum's name in it, is just a poor decision, and it makes me think they're ignorant people. And I don't want to think that, but that's what I think. And that's where I'm going to hopefully chill out. I'm going to chill out.
Somebody replied to that video, the one where they introduce the surprising cameos on stage. Somebody replied, just watch this going into the theater to see the movie, frowny face. Now, I read that, and I stumble upon TikToks and things. You don't always know what you're seeing at first.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, fuck. But at the same time, I was thinking back, I was like, you had time to stop that video, though. Like,
yeah, that's true.
You might not know.
Itself.
You still might not know what's happening when they introduce, here comes Daphne Keane as X-23, and you're just like, oh, cool, that's nice, blah, blah, blah. And then the second they say Jennifer Garner is Elektra, you're toast. But
cut it off.
I also, if you hear that, I also expect you to swipe away right then and there. So I'm curious, did that guy watch the entire video? Because you still had Channing Tatum left. You still had Wesley. It's like, I wonder when that guy stopped watching it. Because to a certain point, it's your fault.
It is.
So
absolutely.
I don't know. So
yeah, the video itself, that didn't bother me. The video itself, because there's plenty of time in the beginning when Ryan and Hugh are speaking. It's like swipe away. And even if because Twitter has that new feature now, if you swipe to it, or I'm sorry, if another video gets done playing and it goes to that video automatically, I hate that feature, by the way. I hate it. But that's happening now. You have a good 10 seconds to swipe again. And so, there are plenty of people. Just imagine that guy sitting there going, oh, no, Jennifer Garner?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Channing. It's
just
like, dude,
he
turn
just
it
doesn't,
off.
He doesn't look away. And to be fair, you brought this conversation up, and I actually think I only saw the videos, and I think I saw the general sentiment. But I don't think when you asked me about this, I don't think I saw the deadline where they wrote out the spoilers.
The names.
So I guess I didn't realize that happened. I think I just thought people saw the video that I've been speaking to. But so anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another reason why I had a different sort of take on it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter ultimately what I think, because now people are just either pissed off at my Walking Dead or Snyder shit. So that's all anybody's going to care about.
At least they're thinking about you, Ryan. That's all.
Let me distract you with an Indian movie reaction. That won't be polarizing at all. Anything else on this?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. We'll obviously do rankings down the line. I will say, though, I think my ranking might surprise you, the 3 movies. I do.
I'll just go on and spoil it.
right.
I think the first Deadpool is the best one still. The best movie.
I would say it's the best quality film. Like, I would argue that the simple story works for it real well. I think this one's my favorite. Out of the
I
three.
understand. Totally get it.
Yep.
Totally get it.
Yep.
I was thinking about what my MCU ranking video is going to be personally on rewatch. And, I've always included the Disney Plus shows in my rankings. I think I'm just going to stick with the movies, to be honest.
That's a good call.
When I do this. But I was like, isn't it so weird, though, if you do an MCU ranking, you just include Deadpool and Wolverine? But you don't include Deadpool 1 and 2? Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't like that.
There is a line there, but it's like at the same time, it's like, we're kind of blurring it a little bit because Marvel Studios is able to pull from these other franchises. So,
Well,
it
already
makes sense. It's just weird.
I was already getting comments on my rankings. They're like, well, if you include the TV shows, where's Daredevil and where's Punisher? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but that's never really talked about. But now it's going to be an extra level of like, oh, well, if Deadpool and Wolverine's in there, then I could put the Deadpool movie and then I could put the Wolverine movies. But if I put the Wolverine movies and I don't put X-Men, then that's going to be weird. And so my brain's going to scramble while doing this.
I think the lines still exist, but I understand that sentiment. Like, I mean, I'm literally the person who posed the question, so I totally get it. I totally get it. But I think the lines are still there. It's like, if I was ranking Disney Plus shows, it would just be like She-Hulk and then Daredevil Born Again. I wouldn't be like, where's Daredevil 1 and 3? But somebody's going to say, but Daredevil 1 through 3 are on Disney Plus, and Kevin Feige said that it's part. It's like, I know that, but there are still lines. But it's like, okay, so would I, could I include Deadpool 1 and 2 and Marvel in the MCU? Yeah. But it's like, okay, so then are you going to include the Blade trilogy? Because Blade is now in it's like, no. It's like when does it end? So, anyway.
And people are they're going to get on to us for that. They're going to be like, where are the Blades? Where's Elektra? And I just want to be like, guys, I know this. I'm just not doing it.
Well, the first thing I would say is quit trying to make me include the Elektra movie in a top superhero movie ranking. Like, that's what you're asking for? Just because you think it makes sense in your head, you need me to include Elektra in the superhero ranking list? No. But second of all, in response to that just means we need to do a top 50 superhero movies list, period. Because then there are no lines to draw. The only lines we'd have to figure out at that point is we'd have to ask ourselves, are we calling this a top 50 superhero movie list? Are we calling it a top 50 comic book movie list? Does this include movies that are inspired by comics but don't actually have source material? Does this Chronicle? Is Chronicle on this list? Is it a superhero movie? It's not a comic book movie. It's like
Incredibles.
Yeah, exactly. Incredibles. It's like, do we include Ninja Turtles? Ninja Turtles are the superheroes, but they're a comic book. It's like that. Man. Those are the kinds of things that we'd have to figure out. And those kinds of conversations should 100% be recorded on the podcast. Yep. We talked about this privately, but it's just a matter of time before we do this. And by the end of the year, I think it's a perfect time to do it because I mean, there's just no more real estate. I mean, we have Joker Folia due, but then we're in the clear for a while until February.
For a bit.
So
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a matter of time, I guess. All right. Almost 2 hours on a Deadpool and Wolverine pod. How about that?
Lot to talk about, man. I'm happy. I'm just happy I have an internet. I'm happy I can see you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so nice. Like, I needed to touch grass, but
Yeah.
now that I have, I'm cool just chilling out in my basement doing a podcast. It just makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. I live for this. So we'll do it again here in a couple of days when we talk about Comic-Con. The only thing we have yet to acknowledge is that we kind of thought we'd have a special guest. So
Yeah.
that might be like something we just always... That'll be our Jimmy Kimmel apologizing to Matt Damon at the end of every episode. We're just going to keep saying that this special guest is coming on until he eventually decides that he wants to come on. So let's just keep doing that.
So next week we'll have a special guest for
For what? What's next? Trap.
what is
next
next
week's
week?
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Trap.
I like that. That'll be fun.
Anyway. Anything else?
No.
right.
No. I'm gonna go. What am I gonna do? I don't have anything to do for the rest of the day. It's weird. I don't like that feeling.
Yeah. Today was the only day. I have 2 jobs now. For those of you keeping track at home, and today was like the only day I'm off from both. So I'm going to get this podcast together and play College Football 25.
Oh,
I've been jealous. I've been playing Road to Glory. I got it the other day, and so that's been fun.
Who's your team? Who you got a team yet? You
I went to UK, and
okay? Classic. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. So I chose, when you get on Road to Glory, you can choose what level you start out as. And I chose Underdog. So what happens when you choose Underdog is you have the furthest to climb in Road to Glory, which means you're not even going to play in a game for your first 2 seasons. So it's just a lot of going to practice and accruing your stats and building yourself
Okay.
up. So here's what I'll say. Any of you who are about to play this game, when you go to practice and you choose the option, whatever, I'm trying to think. And by option, I mean like the play call option, not the football word for option. I said that terribly. When you choose the option practice mode, if you just hit X to begin to spike the play and then let your tailback take off with the ball, they'll score a touchdown almost every time. And it's a glitch in the game. So never go to the option practice, never run an option. Hand it off every time before you take off and pitch, and it'll score. So you'll get a gold medal every time you go to practice. So there's a way to accrue stats very quickly. Anyway, until they update it, and then everything I just said will be obsolete. So,
And the glitch is gone.
all right, that's all I got. We'll see you after Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.